All of their ideas and opinions are those of their own. We as a group at TruthForce are not responsible for anything that's said or done here today.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. How are you all doing? Are we keeping warm? Well, I know you're probably tired of hearing speeches, but hopefully this will be a little different. I want to try to engage some of you guys in some of this stuff because some of you already know about it. But first, let me thank those who have planned and put on this event. It's a great day. We appreciate everything. The weather didn't cooperate with temperature, but other than that, it's going great, and it's a good crowd, and we're glad you're here. My name is David Griggs. I'm an attorney from Dallas, and I also am a part-time professor. I teach government and criminal justice courses at Brookhaven College in Dallas, so I have some interest in government and in the way in which we deal with our laws. And so what I want to talk to you today about is SLAPP suits. But first, let me say what an honor it is to be a part of your group, to be here with Native Americans, to learn about and to talk about our Earth and our planet and how we can protect it together. That's what we're all here about. We want to learn about what this project is all about and the problems that it's potentially going to cause, and do what we can to organize to help to bring it to an end. So I appreciate all of what you're doing. What I was asked to talk about today is something in the law that deals with a concept called SLAPP suits. Now, SLAPP suits, if you'll go to the next slide, the word SLAPP is an acronym. And it actually stands for something, several words. And those words that you'll see on the screen there, a strategic lawsuit against public participation, SLAPP, strategic lawsuit against public participation. It's designed to silence, intimidate, or censor speakers by burdening them with the legal defense until they abandon their criticism or their opposition. In other words, a way to try to force you to court for exercising your First Amendment rights. This is what this is basically about. It's the power play by the big companies, by those who would rather not have to listen to you, to try to shut you up. That's essentially what it's all about. So let's go a little further and look at something that we should all be familiar with as Americans, and that's the First Amendment to our Constitution. It says as follows: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging, now get this, freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for redress of our grievances. Now, those last few things that are underlined are the things that are most relevant to what we're doing here and most important to understanding what a SLAPP suit is all about. Because we do have the freedom to express our opinions. If we don't like what our government is doing, we can let them know. And there are many countries in the world where they don't have that freedom, or at least they may have it, but they don't feel like they can adequately express it. So we have something to be proud of. Also, the press can cover a story without having to worry about whether the government likes it or not. Ever since Watergate, we've seen a difference in the way the press covers the news, and it's largely due to the fact that we do have this freedom. The right of the people to peacefully to assemble, like we're doing here today. You know, we're all concerned about what potentially the government may be doing by approving this pipeline. We're concerned about what these companies are wanting to do, these Canadian companies that want to come into our country and to trench this pipeline across our country for their own profit and use our eminent domain laws to do it. So that's a concern. And so what we want to try to do is figure out how we're going to deal with it. So let's go on to the next thing. The petition the government for redress of grievances. If we have a concern or a problem, this one has died, so I'm just going to use this one for we have the ability in our Constitution to express ourselves and tell our government through petition or other means, protest otherwise, that we don't like what's going on. But unfortunately, there are forces who are working against us. So let's look at the next one. Some of you may have heard about the climate rally that was in Washington last month. We had 50,000 people who had gone to express their concern about this pipeline. I was one of those folks. My wife organized a bus from Texas to go there. We had a lot of folks with us, and there were many people who were there as well. We went to the Washington Monument for a huge rally, and then we marched around the White House. Some of these photographs, as you can see, are of other people. In fact, this is a picture of the Indigenous Environmental Network of Oklahoma. There were Oklahomans who were there, who assisted in this protest in Washington. So they were voicing opinion for action and expressing themselves from their heart as to what they believed. Okay, and here's some more photographs of some of the folks who participated in this endeavor. And one more. One of the purposes of doing this was to get press coverage. It's anytime we protest, anytime we want to express ourselves and express our freedoms, we'd like for somebody to notice, right? And if you've ever been a part of a group that has been in an organized action, you really want the press to cover it, right? You want people to see it. You want to have it go beyond just the people who are there, so it makes a bigger splash. Well, that's what happened. The pictures that you see here are for cameras all over the world who saw this event and had something to report. We remember our constitutional rights and keep them when we participate in these types of events. And people of all types, people who were handicapped, even participated in this protest. And you can see the sign that she has there, no drill, no spill. I mean, what else can you say? Okay, so many people have a message to give. Okay, and one more. There was a wall of opposition to this pipeline in Washington. But the point that I'm making, one more, is that we can stop right there. There are many people who want to express themselves, but there are some forces that often want to stop that. So a SLAPP suit can happen when a lawsuit is filed by a corporation or developer or by a government official against individuals or community organizations that oppose their actions or in retaliation for speaking out on a public issue. Seriously, this happens. In fact, it happened recently in Dallas, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a moment. These suits are filed to intimidate and silence the targeted person or group with the threat of an expensive lawsuit that would require them to defend. This is the issue. Only about 2 weeks ago, we had an issue in Dallas regarding hydraulic fracturing in the city limits. City Council was about to vote. The Planning Commission had to determine whether or not this was going to be allowed and whether or not to make a recommendation to the council on it. And actually a friend of mine who is a young activist with a particular environmental group found himself receiving a letter from the company that wanted to drill and basically telling him that he had misrepresented things and threatening a lawsuit against him if he didn't pack his bags and leave, essentially. Of course, the group that he was with supported him fully. He didn't back down. He went straight to the press, it was in the newspaper, and the company backed down after threatening to do so. But they could have gone a little further and filed what's called a SLAPP suit against this person and his organization for stirring the pot, so to speak, and trying to get public attention on this issue. Well, the rest of the story is, just a few days ago, that Plan Commission considered the whole question, and they voted it down. They did not approve the permit, largely due to the public organizing and the people who have gotten involved in this issue and have basically made a big splash. have exercised their right to speak. And we had many people at this council meeting or this commission meeting who spoke and gave their opinion. But the company tried to go after one of those people who was with an organization to get them to shut up. And that's essentially what this is about. Okay, next. Now, there's several types of SLAPP suits. The two that are probably most relevant to the types of issues we may have in this tar sands effort are defamation and interference with contract. Now, this gets a little legal, but it's important to know the difference here. Defamation is a legal claim involving injury to reputation caused by allegedly false statements of fact, including libel, which is, of course, the written word, and slander, which is the spoken word. Another type of SLAPP suit is dealing with interference with the contract or economic advantage. This is what we see quite often in these types of cases. The legal claim that the defendant interfered with a contract or a business relationship between the plaintiff and a third party that would have benefited the plaintiff economically. Okay, so sometimes this is called tortious interference. We've seen some of these cases in East Texas with civil lawsuits filed by TransCanada against protesters who may have been arrested for a criminal claim, but they also got hit with a civil case as well. And so not only do they have to defend their criminal claim to get out of jail for whatever they did with regard to that, but then they have to have sometimes other attorneys who are dealing with the civil side of the issue. So this is a way that TransCanada is attempting to try to shut down the voices of those who are trying to speak, at least in East Texas, and we may see some of that here in Oklahoma. Okay? Now, the problem with SLAPP suits is that these cases often assert meritless accusations made by these deep pocket plaintiffs who have plenty of money to hire their attorneys, designed to cost the speaker or the protester or the organization a whole lot of money to defend it. And these are people often who have no money. So you can see how effective this might be to try to shut them up. But here's the deal. If the claims are truly meritless, if this is just an accusation to try to stop somebody from speaking, the defendant can often win if they're willing to stick it out, hire an attorney, and actually defend themselves in the end. But without special protection of the laws, these defendants have to incur expenses on the front end of the case without any guarantee that they'll be awarded attorney's fees, even if they ultimately win. That's the problem. You have to have a lot of money to get you to the end to win the case, and then you have to hope the judge will give you the attorney's fees back so that you can make yourself whole. So some states have dealt with this. Now, first, before we get to the better news, let's talk about what you should do if you're hit with a SLAPP suit. First, you should seek legal assistance immediately because time in answering the lawsuit may be ticking. There are different periods of time within which you can answer a lawsuit if you've been served. So you don't need to wait around. You need to get legal assistance immediately. Know your rights. I started out by talking about the First Amendment. Know what your rights are, and you should find out very quickly what the specific laws in your state are regarding this type of issue. And finally, be smart and act strategically. If you're the type of person that likes to spout off and share your opinion and you don't care what people think, if you're sued, you might want to talk to your attorney before you say anything. Okay? It's just, you may be able to still say it, but you might want to be, saying it in a strategically careful way. Okay? Now, in some states, we have seen that there's relief from these suits. To guard the public against the effects of these SLAPP cases, 28 states and the District of Columbia have enacted what are called anti-SLAPP laws to provide relief. The relief varies according to the individual state statutes, but all address the problem in some way to a certain extent. Okay? Now, in Texas, in 2011, our legislature passed an anti-SLAPP bill that was actually almost unanimous with regard to the votes in the Texas House and Senate. The governor signed it. So as of June the 17th of 2011, Texas has a law which allows the defendant to counter a SLAPP suit that's filed against them based upon their First Amendment rights and free speech and petition and association. The statute provides a special motion to dismiss the claim and allows for a stay, which is essentially a delay in discovery while the motion is being considered. So in other words, if you're sued, you receive a SLAPP suit, or you're the defendant, you can file a special motion to get that suspended for a while so that the judge can determine whether the case essentially was valid. The judge has like 30 days to do that. There's real specific timelines here. 30 days for this, 60 days for that. And so you really do need an attorney who can basically look up the law and follow those guidelines very carefully. But if you do it right, and if this was a meritless case, in other words, like the one I described to you in Dallas, you can win this thing by simply following the rules, and your judge will dismiss the case, and then the judge can give you back any attorney's fees that you may have incurred. In other words, it's a way to get this all resolved before discovery has to happen. You all know about lawsuits. There's a discovery phase in a civil case. It's just a way that we can sort of get rid of a frivolous suit on the very beginning. Okay? And the dismissal is allowed if it's a certain kind of communication. It has to be a matter of public concern. And that matter of public concern can be related to the health or safety of the community, environmental, economic, or any type of community well-being issue. And obviously these types of issues are. We have both a health issue as well as an environmental issue with regard to the tar sands pipeline. Now, Oklahoma, unfortunately, doesn't have quite as liberal a law as Texas has, at least not yet. It has some protection with regard to liability for certain libel statements made in the exercise of free speech. This was an Oklahoma statute in 2011. But you might want to talk to your state legislators or to those who you're close to and ask them to consider an anti-SLAPP law. It may not help us in the near future, but 28 other states have chosen to do that. And so Oklahoma at least has something going in that direction, but it doesn't have the official anti-SLAPP law that many other states do have. Okay. Well, that's basically the sort of nuts and bolts of what a SLAPP suit is and what the anti-SLAPP laws are all about. But really the real story are those folks who are attorneys who've been representing people who've been involved in these types of actions. So I will sort of exit the stage at this point from the civil cases, but we have another attorney who's going to come up and talk about the criminal cases and real life people, war stories from the trenches. And so if you want to call upon Doug at this point, he's here somewhere. Yeah. So I'm going to pass the baton to my colleague and let Doug take over and talk about his criminal work.
Okay, brave people who have braved the weather to come out here and show solidarity. This is what I have to say for you. What I want to talk about is the fact that in the resistance to climate change, global warming, the danger that many of us recognize comes from the reliance on fossil fuels as a source of energy in this country. There are a lot of different ways that people take on these issues and a lot of different ways that they resist against the power of these multinational energy corporations that have a stranglehold on politicians, on government, on media, and on all aspects of the culture that we live in. So there are many, many, many ways that people have chosen to resist this force. As awareness grows with regards to the issues and the problems that we face in confronting this issue, a growing number of people have decided that they have learned lessons from history and have realized that when it comes to questions of civil rights, voting rights, workers' rights, children's rights, the rights of humans and individuals, the rights of the planet, the rights of the living beings who reside on this planet, that the lessons from history show us that no significant change really ever happens until large numbers of people act together in concert and don't simply vote with their ballots, they vote with their feet. And by voting with their feet, that means they take to the street, and that means that they take direct action to confront the people that they are in opposition to. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about today. As people have learned more and more about the issue that we're here today in solidarity together, they've realized that it takes direct, nonviolent civil disobedience to confront what's going on. And just for example, over the last week, just this last week, there have been over 50 incidents, direct action and events around the United States and in Canada, and over 50, close to 100 people have been arrested in these actions at construction sites, at banks that are financing the pipeline, at corporate headquarters, where people have taken nonviolent, direct action, acts of civil disobedience to confront the powers that be. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Because just this week is only the tip of the iceberg. This has been going on for months and months. Just with regards to the pipeline construction, over the last several months there have been thousands of protest actions and hundreds of people arrested in these kind of actions. And it's here in Oklahoma also. Over the last 2 months, there have been 9 different people who have been arrested for acts of nonviolent civil disobedience, specifically directed at the pipeline construction sites in Oklahoma. The first action was in, I believe, February of this year, when a 74-year-old retired math teacher from here in Norman, Oklahoma, locked herself to a piece of construction equipment in Okfuskee County. By that singular act, she successfully stopped construction on the pipeline for one day. One person's act, locked herself to a piece of construction equipment. It took them a day to unlock her from that piece of equipment, process her through the legal system, and she is facing in Okfuskee County a misdemeanor criminal charge of trespassing on public utility property. This heinous offense of voicing your displeasure with what's going on by an act of nonviolent civil disobedience carries possibility of 10 days in the county jail and up to a horrible $100 fine. So this old lady, this old woman, locking herself to a piece of equipment, stopped construction for one day. Now, among the other people who have engaged in similar acts are a Mennonite youth minister from a Church of the Open Arms in Oklahoma City, and an emergency room medical technician from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Because the next action that occurred in Oklahoma was a few weeks ago, about a month ago actually, in Seminole County, and the Methodist youth minister locked himself to a construction crane on the construction site, and again, by that singular act, stopped construction at that part of the pipeline for one entire day. Because at the same time, 7 other people were arrested at that site and charged with trespassing, all 8 of those people charged with trespassing, not on public utility property, but just what's called in Oklahoma criminal trespass, an offense, a misdemeanor criminal offense that carries no jail time and a $250 fine. So simply by putting themselves on the line, putting their bodies on the line, these people have decided to take direct, non-violent civil disobedience to the point of actually stopping construction of the pipeline. They are not the first. They will not be the last. Similar actions, as I have said, have gone on in East Texas for the last 5 or 6 months. Similar actions are going on this week and in the future at corporate headquarters, at banks, at a number of different locations. They don't simply involve being arrested, although those seem to be the most effective in actually stopping construction. They include banner drops at public locations. They include occupations of offices and sites where they stop things for a short period of time but don't subject themselves to arrest. Nonviolent civil disobedience historically has always been an effective tool in changing public policy, and that's what I wanted to bring to your attention today. There are people in Oklahoma, in Nebraska, in Kansas, in the Dakotas. They are Native people, they are white people, they are African American people, they are Asian American people. People from all walks of life are coming to the realization that simply voting, simply signing petitions, simply writing letters, while all of those things have a place in a democratic society, the lesson of history instructs that no significant change ever occurs without people taking direct action and placing their bodies, their minds, and their souls in the face and in front of the opposition. That's what's happening in Oklahoma. If you are interested in following these things, pay attention to the Great Plains Tar Sands Resistance, the Tar Sands Blockade, other organizations. You can find it, and they will find you. Thank you.
Thank you.